Good evening, and welcome to today's program, Navigating Women's Leadership Advancement in Higher Education. I am Hannah Johnson, the Cultural Affairs Assistant at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. On behalf of the U.S. Embassy, I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. I would also like to introduce our Chargé d'Affaires, Angela Aguilar, who will provide opening remarks. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so pleased to welcome you to today's program, Navigating Women's Leadership Advancement in Higher Education. I am delighted that so many outstanding leaders in academia, who also happen to be women, are able to join this virtual event. A very special welcome and thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Cynthia Warrick, an extraordinary pioneer and advocate, particularly for our historically Black colleges and universities, and the first female president of Stillman College. And a very warm welcome to Dr. Sonia, another trailblazer and a lecturer in the Department of English at the Women's Campus of the International Islamic University, who will moderate our program. Promoting gender equality and increasing the participation of women in leadership and decision-making positions are crucial, now more than ever. For us at the U.S. Embassy, empowering women is a strategic investment in our collective future, and we are committed to ensuring women's equality, economic empowerment, and protection from violence and discrimination. And access to education is a fundamental tool of empowerment. The benefits of gender diversity in the workplace cannot be overstated. It increases productivity, creativity, performance, staff retention, and collaboration. A study of Fortune 500 companies showed that companies with more women on their boards financially outperformed those with fewer females. But gender diversity in the workplace is not enough. Equally important is gender parity in leadership positions. Like elsewhere across the globe, Pakistani women comprise just a fraction of executive leadership positions across sectors, including in higher education. Failure of organizations to promote women throughout their careers and the failure of women themselves to push for those promotions results in a lack of women in senior positions. Closing that gap requires the commitment of men and women to identify and remove the obstacles facing women seeking to assume leadership roles. We here at the U.S. Mission in Pakistan work to help Pakistani women realize their enormous potential, giving them the tools to succeed in higher education. Just one example of that commitment is our partnership with Michigan State University, important work in which many of you are involved, which provides professional growth and mentoring opportunities for Pakistani women in higher education, with the goal of advancing them into positions of leadership. In Pakistan and around the world, women in higher education have made some progress, but they continue to face significant challenges in advancement and pay equity. Barriers include a lack of leadership opportunities, institutional biases, structure and cultural obstacles, and lower earnings as compared to their male counterparts. As they confront those professional challenges, female leaders in higher education serve as role models for their students. They balance their own struggles for advancement while educating and mentoring the next generation of young women to help them attain their potential. This is the indispensable work that so many of you do every day. You promote exactly this type of positive change in higher education here in Pakistan. And the United States will always stand with you in these efforts to strengthen outstanding leadership that also happens to be female. Let me thank each one of you for your dedication to advancing women's equality in higher education and throughout Pakistani society. Please know that the United States stands firm in our dedication to women's empowerment, gender equality, and promoting women's leadership in higher education. Thank you all.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning and good evening, depending upon where you are. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the attendees who are joining this live session here. I welcome you all to this interesting session that we are having to celebrate Women's History Month. Just bear with me, I think there is a bit of... Can you see me now?
Yes, we can see and hear you perfectly. Thank you.
So I'm Dr. Sonia, and I'll be moderating this live Q&A. And this live Q&A is for the session on navigating women's leadership advancement in higher education. Before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping notes for you. Today's live Q&A is being recorded and will be available for viewing post-session. I think my team will also enable live transcript for the session today, but if you wish to hide the live transcript, you may click on the live transcript button, or you can hide the subtitles. And if you have questions for the speaker, you may raise your hand or use the chat feature in this Zoom meeting, and we'll lead your question. You can also submit a question, of course, via chat. And if you have, some of my friends are attending, and if you want to send your questions via WhatsApp, you can. And if you're not asking a question, I think administratively your mics would be muted. And if you have any technical questions, please reach out directly to me via the chat function, or use the pathable support option located either in the top bar of your conference platform. Time to introduce our esteemed guest, Dr. Cynthia Warrick. Dr. Cynthia Warrick is the 7th president at the first female to lead Stillman College, a historically Black liberal arts college in Alabama that was founded by and affiliated with the Presbyterian Church USA. Named one of the 10 most dominant historically Black college and university HBCU leaders of 2020 by the HBCU Campaign Fund, Dr. Warrick served as the interim president of 2 HBCUs, Grambling State University and South Carolina State University, after advancing the faculty and administrative ranks at Howard University and the University of Texas, Texas Southern University, Florida A&M University, and Elizabeth City State University. She received the PhD in Environmental Science and Policy from George Mason University, the MS Public Policy from the Georgia Institute of Technology, and the BS Pharmacy degree from Howard University. As a biomedical scientist and pharmacist, she forges research and workforce development partnerships to grow the biomedical diversity pipeline between HBCUs, government agencies, industry, and major research institutions. She was recently recognized by the Network Journal as one of 25 influential Black women in business in 2021 by the National Black MBA Association 2021. She H. Neil Fitzgerald Award for her work in gaining. She was also given this award by H. Capital Finance Loan Forgiveness for 44 HBCUs, including over $400 million in debt forgiveness for Alabama HBCUs. Dr. Warrick has also been selected as a 2022 honoree for the Women Who Shape the State by the Birmingham News Organization, AL.com. She credits her success to the continuous support from her family and network of colleagues and friends, and by answering God's call to serve others in education and healthcare. So we welcome our speaker to this session.
Thank you, Dr. Sonia, for that kind introduction. Let me get my slide. Well, now that everybody knows who I am, and I'm excited to be here. It is morning, and I'm actually in Houston, Texas right now. So this is pretty much, I want to talk about my career path into the presidencies in higher education. And it really started, I'm a pharmacist, so when I was in pharmacy school 1,000 years ago, there were not very many women in that field now. So I would just say that in all fields, just give it time. Women will succeed, and we will start representing each other in numerous different areas where we have not been represented previously. But in my academic years, I started as a doctoral student at George Mason University, that's in Fairfax, Virginia, in the nation's capital. And the dean of the pharmacy school at the time, Dr. Vasant Tulang, who was one of my professors when I was in pharmacy school, he asked me to come back to Howard and serve on the faculty, and given 3 years to show Howard students that pharmacists don't just fill prescriptions. After Howard, I left and went to the University of Texas School of Public Health in the Health Science Center in Houston, where I was an investigator in the Center for Health Promotion and Prevention Research, and served in 2 joint faculty appointments in behavioral science and health education and in the community health and policy departments. I was also an adjunct in the pharmacy school at Texas Southern University, and then left Houston and went to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was an associate professor and chair of environmental occupational health. And then after a few years there, I left and became the dean of math, science, and technology at Elizabeth City State University. So I say this and just charting my academic career is that you have to succeed in your field, in your discipline, do everything you can to succeed in your discipline, and then you can move up in these areas. So in the summer of 2011, when I was at Elizabeth City State, I decided I wanted to think about moving into higher ed administration. I was a dean, and I really felt, wow, you know, I'm looking at what these men presidents are doing, and I was like, well, I'm a problem solver. I think I can do that job. And so I like self-help books and professional development. So I looked for different types of opportunities to kind of give me advice about what is it that I need to do in order to move forward in my career. And so this particular book, The Superwoman Lifestyle Blueprint, and I got it on Amazon, and they talk about beginning with your strengths. Build yourself first, commit to personal growth, become extraordinary, don't give excuses, banish fear, be fearless, and believe in every opportunity, and just say yes, because saying yes opens the doors. You never know what's going to happen if you don't try. And then I reached out to a group called the Registry for, and I can't see my screen because the slide pictures are in the way. Okay, there we go. The Registry for College and University Presidents. It was founded in 1992, and what they do is place interim professionals into higher education appointments. So I interviewed with them, and they accepted me into the registry, and I started looking at other opportunities. I also, because I'm in the health professions, I participate in my professional organizations, and I was at the National Medical Association annual convention in Toronto, where they had a speaker talking about developing your own brand. And Jason Levine became a friend. He also became a career coach. Many of you have heard of these types of professional coaches. And I had been interviewing, I had been applying for various positions and interviewing, and just wanted to make sure that I wasn't sending some type of body language or what was happening, because I felt I did well in the interview. but I didn't get the position. And so over and over, I was interviewing, applying for positions I thought were good, and that I thought I would be selected, but I wasn't. And so I met with Jason, and he reviewed my resume, and we talked about what my interview style was like and what I could do to improve. And he just kind of critiqued how I looked when I answered questions, how I talked about my career, all of that. And that kind of helped. He's released a new book called Relationships to Infinity, the Art and Science of Keeping in Touch. One of the things that you'll find is that you really need to develop a network of people who can facilitate you in various environments. So I was selected as the interim president at South Carolina State University. And what people need to realize in terms of presidencies, if you aspire to be a college president, is that the board of trustees selects the president. You are the only employee of the board. And many times, and especially in the case of women, politics are in play. At South Carolina State, and then I was interim at Grambling State University. I wasn't the first, but I was the second female president, and there hasn't been one since. So we just have to keep trying over and over to not to break that glass ceiling in higher ed. Another thing that I do is looking at continuing education and self-improvement. One of the things that when you assume to these leadership positions is that you have to identify people who will work for you. You need talented folks who can serve as your provost, your, the dean of various schools, the finance person, so it's not all about just academia. You need to develop a network of people in other fields who can complement your leadership and who really want to partner with you and work. I find that women tend to be more collaborative leaders. So they're very interested in working as a team. And that's very important today. Everything is done through teamwork. So you really need to scout for talent, among your friends, and then developing new friends, networking to develop a team of individuals. Strategic planning is a skill that you must have. Every institution has a strategic plan. So begin learning how to develop a strategic plan early on for your department and for your own career. Community building, working outside of the institution, developing those types of partnerships in research, in community service, in supporting other women so that you get a reputation of serving and really trying to help. When you start doing things for others, that's when you really develop yourself. And then learning how to problem solve. So I always like to look at these books because they kind of motivate you, because you can be disappointed. You'll have lots of no's, but you never know when the yes is going to take place. So looking at books like The Little Black Book of Success, being unapologetically ambitious, it's okay to want to lead. And it worked for me in Life and Leadership by Colin Powell. So books like this that kind of help give you the courage, the motivation to kind of step out of, the teaching and research mode and then move more into service and supporting leadership development. And collaboration, that is so, so very important. This is a picture of me with the CEO of the YWCA, Young Women's Christian Association. It's a national nonprofit organization that's been around for over 100 years. And we just signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to build a YWCA. It's a comprehensive facility for health, wellness, fitness, and childcare on the campus of Stillman College. And so this is a very unique partnership because this facility will not only serve the campus, but the community. So always thinking about how can I use my position to help others? How can I not only support the students that I have, but also support the community? And that's really important because what you'll find in higher education leadership, it's about students. You really need to have the focus on the students and what's in their best interest. And you need students in order to generate the revenue to hire faculty and staff to do the things that you want. It's the students who are the customers who cover the bills and give your institution recognition. So you need to pour everything you have into your students so that they can excel, and then the institution will excel, and then you will excel. I think public-private partnerships are important. So really creating those linkages outside of the institution are important. Stakeholder engagement. Just like I said, one of the things that Stillman is doing now, because we're located in an area called a food desert, we're developing a community garden. So we're getting community members to come and have their own gardening plots so they can come and plant vegetables. And we figured for this 10 by 10 acre plot that we could feed over 100 families. So getting students involved in this kind of community service and getting the campus involved. So it's not just about teaching and research. That service component is not just about serving the institution, but really looking at how you can use your leadership to serve the community. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I hope you have questions. And I see there are some questions in the chat, so I'll wait for Dr. Sonia to facilitate the questions. Well, I see, oh, okay, there she is.
Yeah, sorry. Dr. Cynthia, before I collect all the questions from the audience, that I just want you to, if you it's a very simple question, but it inspires a lot of women like us who want to reach these positions. Who inspired you to be a leader and why? And when you began your career, did you ever imagine that you would be in a leadership position? Did you ever do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard because I hadn't thought about it, Sonia. So I wish you had sent that to me to think about it beforehand. You know, when I started pharmacy school, I decided I wanted to have my own pharmacy, and I did, and I operated it, and then in my hometown in San Antonio. And during that time, in San Antonio, Texas is a very diverse environment. It's tricultural. It's primarily majority Mexican Americans, then Anglo population, and then a very small African American population. And I left and left Texas and went to Washington, D.C. to Howard. I aspired to open my own pharmacy. I really loved when I was growing up, the pharmacist was someone who really took interest in your health. And I operated that pharmacy, and then there was an opportunity to serve on the board of the Alamo Community Colleges district. And this was an elected position. So I actually ran for election and I was elected and then served on the board. And that's when I kind of aspired to get into higher education leadership. So at that time, the mayor of San Antonio was Henry Cisneros, and he's a visionary, and he really got me involved in local government and politics. And, you know, and then I linked that to higher education because I had young women working for me in my pharmacy, and I was mentoring them to go into pharmacy school or just go to college. And so I think what you have to remember, and I guess what you take from this, Dr. Sonia, is that mentors are not always women, and that you are not getting your inspiration or support from women. I believe my father always, you know, wanted me to be like him. So he kind of motivated me and pushed me to do things that, you know, were not gender specific. So, you know, going into pharmacy at that time, there were very few women in that field. So I guess I've always been kind of a pioneer and just have the courage to just step out there and do what makes sense. So I don't think anyone in particular inspired me to be in higher ed leadership. I just felt that this was a calling that I could help and help more women and help more people of color to advance and gain, because I think having a college degree is just so important for everyone to be successful.
Well, this leads me to my next question, that do you experience resistance when you are leading men?
Oh, yes. A lot of times, and I guess because of my voice and my demeanor, people will, you know, look at me and say, did she really just say that? I mean, you just have to take charge. You don't ask permission. You just have to, if you know you're right, and if you know it's the right thing to do, then you just need to step out there and do it. You're gonna have to empower yourself, but you do need to have people there to back you up. You need supporters. So building that network and having those folks that are part of your team, your family, so to speak, they'll pull your coattail and say, okay, don't say anything right now, because I'm good at putting my opinion out there. But I think I learned, you know, a lot to start, just take a deep breath and start thinking first, okay, what should I say that's not going to offend anyone, that's not going to disappoint anyone. You know, you have to be real careful. It's always like writing an email. You have to be really careful about what you write because you can't take it back. So it's the same thing about what you're saying in meetings. You have to be conscious and sensitive about being strategically correct about what you're doing.
Since I myself am from academia, so I would like you to, if you could just tell us that, just if you could just highlight the challenges faced by women in higher education in US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think women, it's difficult, even just coming through graduate programs and getting a first position. A lot of times you're relegated to being the mentor, to being the one that's going to nurture everyone. And I think you have to find a balance between nurturing and leading, especially if you want to lead. Yes, you're going to have to support students, but you're also going to have to play a role in departments. So when you're the only female in a department or one of few females in a department, you don't want to be what they call in the States, the angry woman, you know, just always bitter. You want to have a positive attitude and really just try to turn the situation around, you know, so people can see issues from your point of view. And that takes a lot of thought about doing this, but you really do need to find your voice and find supporters. You need to identify those men who think about things the same way you do and work with them to build colleagues. You have to build colleagues. If you don't build relationships in your department, you will fail. If you know, you need to have those supporters for tenure and promotion. You need to have supporters to write. You're going to have to publish. You're going to have to do service, do research. It's a lot you have to do. You have to be great in your discipline so you get respect. The only time you can earn respect is if you're excellent at what you do. If you're an excellent teacher, if you're an excellent nurturer or mentor, if you're an excellent researcher, then people will respect and listen to you.
And next, another very important and simple question that how do you go about supporting women on their path to success?
Yeah, you know what you have to do is have those off meetings. You have to find opportunities to go to lunch and talk about these things. You have to ask for help, and you have to ask for, you know, advice, and you kind of have to decide who's for you and who's against you. All women are not going to be supportive. Some have their own agenda. Everybody has their own agenda. And so I believe you really have to be selective about who you align yourself with. You have to kind of, you know, there's a lot of politics in higher education, as you know. And so you really have to be, use your instincts, your female instincts about who's going to be successful, and are they someone that you're comfortable with supporting and aligning yourself with so that you'll move forward. It was really interesting when my former dean of Vasant Tillang, he was a biomedical chemist, you know, in the pharmacy school, and who would know that he would be the dean? And he came to me and said, Cynthia, I want you to come back to Howard. And it was so hard. If he wasn't supporting me, those folk would not have hired me. That faculty, they were not going to hire me. And so you have to find who is your supporter, who wants you there, and go where people want you. And then find that network of folks who are going to, I've noticed even in the college, you had like factions of people working together as teams. So women have to be part of these teams. If there aren't very many women there, you're going to have males. That's your part. You have to be part of a team. You can't win by yourself.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Network is very important if you have, we have to move forward for this. Okay, I have received a question that is, capable women often hit the glass ceiling. Do you have any recommendations on how to break through this ceiling, especially when the workplace is not easily changed?
Yeah, you have to move. You know, one of the things I hope you took notice of in my presentation is I've moved through 7 or 8 different institutions. when you find that you can't go any further where you are, you need to start looking for a new place and looking for a place where you can grow and develop professionally. And it requires you to move. And sometimes that's hard for women because many of us have families. I mean, when I left San Antonio and went away to college, I had recently divorced. So I had 2 little children, and everyone thought I was crazy because I left my pharmacy. And I moved to Los Angeles and went to UCLA, and I got in a certificate program in hazardous materials management because I was interested in the issues of babies being born without brains on the Texas-Mexico border. And I was like, there has to be something environmental related to that because our diets have been the same for 1,000 years. So it's not the rice and beans and tortillas we eat. What is it? And so I started looking, and it just was inspired by toxic substances. But I had to make a decision. Well, am I going to stay in pharmacy or am I going to move? And I moved to Los Angeles and, and made a living there with my children and I. And then after I left there, I went to Atlanta and I moved them to Atlanta. And then I moved them to DC. And so it made them stronger too, because in each place they had to find new friends and colleagues, and they had to become more independent. So you have to move. You can't change people to be what you want them to be or even what they should be. You can only control yourself. And so if you find that the folks don't see what you believe you are, then you have to go to a place where people respect and appreciate you. And that's what you'll find. Once you leave, then everybody was like, oh, we shouldn't have let her go. We should have kept her here, everybody, and always leave on good terms. Always, leave a place better than where you found it, and leave on good terms, places where you can go back. Don't break your bridges. Maintain those bridges and those relationships you develop, but you're going to have to move in order to excel.
Well, Dr. Cynthia, you got me emotional because I'm going through this, but I take your advice that move, but don't break your bridges. Okay, we go to next question, that is, how do you push for systemic change around ideas that are new or not that popular?
Yeah, you have to develop credibility. So you probably need to write about it. We're in higher ed, and so if you don't publish it, it didn't happen. So you can do an opinion article, some type of op-ed, some kind of pilot research, but we have to use data and evidence to support our views. So you really need to think about it's not about what I believe or what I think is important. In the academy, it's about the evidence, the data, the lit review. You have to find who's done this before and why should this be done this way? And then what can you add or close that gap? So it's really about being a good researcher and strategist about how you think about things. But just talking about it and forcing it, and it's not going to gain you many friends. People don't like to hear something that they're not in. A lot of times what happens with women, we'll come up with this great idea and no one listens to us. And then the male in the department will come up with, he'll hear it and he'll change it up a little and say it differently. And then everybody's like, oh, that's such a great idea, and you're like sitting there, I just said that. And so you just have to develop thick skin, and you're just going to have to know it's going to happen. And you're going to have to, but somebody else in that room will have heard, and they'll come to you later and say, I heard you, that was your idea, I understand. And then that's where you start building those relationships. You've got to have people who are going to step up for you and say, well, that was Sonia's idea. That's what she just said. You have to have that audience, you know, that backup that is going to support you.
Our next question from the audience is, what advice would you give to young women entering this profession?
Yeah, I would say that just be the best you can and focus on the students. Focus on the students. Put everything you have into them and teach them and learn from them, support them. And if you focus on the students and creating those better outcomes from them, they will all remember you. And you just never know. They will be the ones who will toot your horn the loudest. And you need them because they're the largest population on every campus. And so once students know that you're for them, they will be for you.
And what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
I think it's ourselves in our mind, how we think women have to be. We have to be a certain way. We limit ourselves in our own mind. And I think, and that's why I read those self-help books, because, you know, I do it too. It's scary, you know, it's new and it's something you haven't done before. So I think you have to find what helps you get the courage and get the words, get the understanding to help you move beyond what you were taught as a child. You know, when I was, I was the oldest, and of course, growing up in your families, we're taught to be a certain way. Women are taught to be a certain way. You know, we're multitaskers. Most men can't do two things at the same time, but women, we can organize and do multiple things because we were taught to do that. We were taught to organize a household and do all of these things and go to school and work and do, you know, multiple things and so to think that men can do that is unrealistic, you know. So I will tell women all the time, when they're frustrated because men don't think about these issues the same as they do, I'll say, but they're not women. They weren't taught to think like that, but we were brought up a certain way to manage households, manage, you know, the family, and do all of these things. And so unfortunately, we have to do all of these things and more. So, but you have to figure out how best it works for you, how to be good at managing those social expectations, and then also the work expectation, you know, the career, and see how it works for you. And what usually that means is that it's going to be longer than men. It's going to take longer for you to do things just because we have so many more responsibilities. So you have to kind of chart the path that works best for you within your own abilities, your own schedule, your own time. You don't have to be on a fast pace, but you know, it just depends. But you really have to know you. You really have to know who you are and how this is going to work, and really try to fit it in. But don't have unrealistic expectations that everybody's going to say, "Ooh, yoo-hoo, that's wonderful, that's wonderful." What you'll find is most people are going to say is, "That's crazy. You know, why would you want to do that?" You know, and you just have to get thick skin and say, "Okay, I shouldn't ask them. I just should show them." And so when I left my pharmacy, everybody thought, and I left a political career. I just gotten elected. So everyone's like, "Oh, she's going to be a city council person and this and that." And then I just thought to myself, is this really what I'm here to do? Is this really what I want? And I said, no, you know. And so then I moved and went to something else. And then when I go home, everybody's like, "Oh, you were a pioneer. We didn't know. We didn't see what you saw." And so I think that's what we have to understand, is that we may be out there alone. People are watching, and but you can still get the strength and the support you need to be successful. But it may take longer.
Continue with the same questions. One of the audiences asked that in higher education, at times one has to let go of research work to manage administrative appointments. What has been your experience with this?
Yeah, well, I still write grants, and I'm the president. So I mean, it's not going to end. It's kind of like women have to do it all if you really want to be respected, and you just have to figure out when. You just have to be a good time manager to fit it all in. So you just have to set some time to write, set some time for your own professional development. You've got to put the time in and schedule things around that makes sense for your schedule and your interests.
Okay, another one asks, what kind of challenges have you faced as a woman in academic leadership at the level that you are now? And
Yeah.
how did you navigate through the entire process? Who is part of your support system?
Yeah.
And who are your allies?
You know, the institutions I've served in have been what I found in higher education in the United States is that when they put a woman in charge of a college or a university, is that it's messed up. I mean, the men have just jacked the institution up, and it's all kinds of chaos and problems. You know, you're about to close, you're going to lose your accreditation, it's you know, enrollment's down. It's like you're not, women in leadership in higher ed, we are not going to get that easy school that you walk into and everything's going to be rosy and you're going to, they don't give women that job. We get the job to clean up the mess, you know, to solve the problem. And so what we have to recognize in that regard is that they need us more than we need them. So if you keep that in the forefront of your mind, that I'm much more valuable to you now because I've come here to clean up this mess. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring the team that we need to figure this out and develop a strategy to make it happen. And then you just do it. You don't ask permission. You just figure out what it is you need to do and do it. And I found that women, we tend to ask permission a lot, you know, because that's how we were raised. Can we do this? Can I do this? And I think if you stop asking permission and just do, then you'll be able to get more done and you won't have as many barriers. Because the minute you ask permission, someone's going to say, oh, she shouldn't do that. I'll do it, and jump in front of you or make you look bad, or, you know, it's all kinds of agendas out there. Lots of people will think when you're a woman, especially as a president, that you really shouldn't have that job, that it should be a man that's running the institution. And so you just have to demonstrate over and over again why you're there and why you're more important to the institution than they are to you.
Okay, there is another one that says, during your career, how much change has occurred in the US regarding women leadership and representation in academia? Are there any lessons that Pakistan can draw from this?
Yeah, it's getting better. There are more and more women leaders. I mean, every time when you start looking at, and you can kind of do like a Google alert and just say women university presidents, and they'll start popping up, and you'll see more and more women are being selected to be university presidents. Just remember what I said. It's not the easy job, it's the hard job. The institution that's in trouble, and let's just say a female-only institution, you know, if it's a co-ed in the United States, we have more co-ed institutions. So getting those jobs is even more difficult for women, especially large, very prominent institutions. You'll see women's tenure at those institutions tend to be shorter than their male counterparts. So it's changing, but we need more change. What we do, and a lot of the other women presidents, we try to get together and organize like a weekend, or organize like a Zoom. You know, of course, everybody's been on Zoom during this pandemic, so we've organized some little Zoom talks where we kind of help each other, build each other up, just to kind of relax and have someone that you can vent to, because you're gonna vent. You're gonna have someone's gonna say something, do something, and all women have had these issues. So it's good to find a time like this group that's on this webinar. You know, you all should be networking in the chat and find out, you know, when can we get together on a Zoom to talk about all of these issues with each other, so you can plan and develop your strategies. I mean, I think that's what these webinars are good for. You're networking right now. You know, usually when I go to a webinar, what I do is I look in the chat and look at the participants, and I write their names down. And then I go to LinkedIn and I look them up and add them to my network. And so then you start building that network so that you have people who are interested in these issues. And then you all, somebody, in the leader in the bunch is going to say, Dr. Sonia, won't you host a Zoom for us to come back together and talk about these things? So the more we have opportunities to talk and discuss this, the more you'll be able to feel good about being in the academy, understanding that there are many women with similar challenges. It's not just you. And having that support group that's going to say, it's okay, I'm here. Call me and vent to me. You can always do that. You need somebody like that.
I'm also reading some of the comments, and one of the audiences says that this is a pro tip for networking. She loved it. Okay, now moving towards the next question is, what in your opinion are the factors that impact a woman's ability to lead others?
Well, I think women make great leaders because we are great mothers, we're great sisters, we're great aunts, and we have that caring attitude. We do care, and I think those qualities set us apart from men, and that we should always maintain those qualities that make us who we are. And when we do that, you'll generate respect. People want to work for you. They want to be on your team because they see you doing things that they want to do. So it tends to be magnetic. You're going to start attracting more and more people when you express your discipline through your thoughtfulness, your caring, your nurturing, all of those things. When you're student-centered, and that's what people always say about me, every places that I've left, and they'll say, you're the most student-centered president that we've ever met. You know, when I take visitors on campus, I'm visible, I'm accessible to the students, to everybody, to the faculty, staff. Everybody has my email and my phone number. They don't disrespect it. They only contact me when it's absolutely necessary, but I'm accessible. And being accessible is just so important. Everybody wants someone to listen to them. And if the faculty member, the chair, the dean, the provost, the president is accessible to you, then, you know, you resolve a lot of issues before they start bubbling up, you know, because no one listened. So I think we have to listen. We have to be accessible. We have to be students first, and then support your colleagues, and certainly support other women.
And what do you think? How can women navigate power structures?
And like I said, you got to find that man who wants you on his team. That's you know, they're run the world, you know. I mean, there's men who run the world, but they are going to select a small set of women. Society is forcing them to now. So you've got to find that one you can work with. Somebody that, you know, respects and appreciates your counsel. Someone who thinks you're bright and intelligent and smart. Someone who is going to encourage and develop you and help you grow. You've got to find, you know, if there aren't any women in those positions, you've got to find men.
Okay, another question is that as a leader, how do you stay mindful of who's at the table and who's missing?
Yeah, you always have to think about that. I think you just have to kind of look around and peruse the landscape. You know, in the United States, athletics is a big deal. You know, we have Title IX. There's a lot of trying to have equity in athletic sports on campuses, and certainly, you know, that gender equity. It also has to do with sexual abuse, sexual harassment, all of that. And that's an area where, who are your coaches? Who are the coaches over these programs? So it's very hard sometimes to find female coaches for, we have women's softball, women's volleyball, women's basketball, track and field. Right now I'm challenged because I have one female head coach. She's the track and field coach, so that's a co-ed sport. But I need to be able to find more women who are basketball coaches, volleyball, all of these the women's sports. It's challenging. I know when I was at Grambling, it was a headline because I did have a female basketball coach and the male basketball coach. And I paid them the same thing. The salaries were transparent for the state schools. And so they found out that I paid the female head coach, the same as the male head coach. And that was a news article. They were like, well, why did you do that? And I was like, she's doing the same job. That's a no-brainer to me, but it's something that was very unusual at the time, and it's still unusual today. Women are not getting the same pay for the same job. So I think we have to be sensitive to those things. Think about, when you're in a position of leadership, how you select. So my leadership team has probably equal women and males, but I'm really looking for people who can do the job as well as be that representative for gender at the top.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Cynthia. Whatever the words you have just spoken have been inspirational and wonderful. I think many women like me who are looking for inspiration, your words will prove very powerful, and you give us hope. And we want more women like you in academia and in the leadership positions. And I hope that the future is female and the future is bright. And I take this point home today that I think women have a way with words, and if we want our stories out, we need to publish more. We have so many platforms, and whatever ideas, whatever our stories are, we need to have them heard, and we need to publish them as much as possible. Okay, with this, I once again thank you, Dr. Cynthia, our guest speaker, our US Embassy team. Thank you to the wonderful audience who have been sending us the questions in this live Q&A. And if you have any additional questions for the speaker, you can just reach us for this session. And be sure to share this talk with your friends. And please do not forget to fill the survey that's been circulated with you by our team. I once again, I'm thankful to all of you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.